Friends, what a large gathering to discuss about the People's Council. I think it shows the interest we all have in establishing a body, a space outside what we have believed to be a democratic structure, a parliament. I want to start off my speech by repeating what Comrade Lahiru just said when he spoke. The Golfest protest was a gathering of many people who would otherwise not be considered as political. They were people who were engaging in ordinary day-to-day activities. And this year, for whatever reason, due to economic repression by the state, they came together in Golfest and they stayed there. They occupied the space, a space which was until that point relegated to the business elites. Large hotels have been built. Even places like one Golfest, which is supposed to be a public mall, ordinary street vendors cannot go, and military complexes. So this elite space was occupied by very ordinary people who don't have political power, and they stayed there for several months. And they said, this space is your space, but this space is also our space, and you will not make us go. And as Comrade Lahiru was saying, many people said, people just gathered in Golfest, jobless people, they were just sitting there talking and so on. But what did these people do? Day and night, they debated political ideas. What does it mean to have power beyond parliament? What does it mean to exercise democratic rights? What does it mean for people to have sovereignty? What does it mean to have political power of the people, which is not just restricted to elections? So despite the fact that many people think that People's Council was a body which came after the Golfest struggle or the Golfest occupation came to an end in July, that was not so. This idea was mooted and debated and reflected by the people who occupied Golfest and people outside Golfest also since April this year. And as a consequence of that, today we have this large gathering. So what does the People's Council say? What is the idea of the People's Council? The People's Council says, yes, we do elect 225 people to parliament, but our post-independence history had shown us that people get elected to parliament, but after they get elected to parliament, they forget why we elected them to parliament. They pass legislation and laws and policies which is against the interests of the people. Who passed the PTA? The parliament. Who passed the single only act? Who passed the PTA? The parliament. Who passed the single only act? The parliament. Who passed land legislation and micro money recovery acts? The parliament. Dispossessing minorities, dispossessing the poor, dispossessing women, and the parliament continues to do this. Most recently, they have also mooted a rehabilitation bureau bill. So once the 225 people get elected to parliament, they forget why they are elected to parliament and they start acting undemocratically. And to date, we have not had a citizens movement, a citizens body, which will hold these 225 people accountable to why we voted for them, for why we elected them to power. And that is the structure which the People's Council attempts to create, to hold these people accountable as to why they have been voted into power. And that is why strengthening this People's Council is so very important to us. How do we hold our elected members of parliament accountable? And what does the fundamental principles and policies of this People's Council say? It says that we need to debate race, sexuality, gender, class contradictions. We need to create policies which will promote the rights of minorities, which will promote the rights of women, the LGBTQ communities, the working class. It says the Sri Lankan wealth, the common property of our people, the common wealth of our people should belong to the people and should not be sold away at the whims and fancies of the executive. It says we need to look into structures and mechanisms which do not concentrate powers in individuals like the executive presidential system, but we need to have a democratic ruling mechanism in Sri Lanka. So this is what the People's Council says, and this is what my comrades and friends who have gathered for the last several months every Sunday. For several hours, they have debated and discussed. And today, we have culmination of that is what we have this event today. And I hope this People's Council, this is the start of a more strengthened People's Council. This is the start of regionalized People's Council, and more People's Councils form in other regions, where regional problems will also be discussed. It should not only be concentrated in Colombo. And I hope that the People's Council becomes a space where our elected representatives in Parliament. You remember the Satyagraha we had soon after Gotabaya Rajapaksa went home. We had a Satyagraha and we said, do not vote Ranil Wickremesinghe to power, because we know what he will do. And 134 people ignored the requests of the people and voted Ranil Wickremesinghe to power. And from that day to this day, he has been oppressing us. So we should not have a repeat of this. We should not have a repeat of oppressive policies being passed by elected representatives. And I hope the People's Council will become a body which will hold our elected representatives, the Parliament, the Executive, to account for whatever they do moving forward. Thank you.